Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I have two fantastic guests waiting in the waiting room to meet you guys. As you know, I do this broadcast every day. We're trying to help 1 million people start a business of their own. I'm proud to say we've helped 42 people so far start a company, and you can check out those people and what they're doing under thepurposefulproject.com. We have just to mention before we start, a podcast show tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. We're trying a new time slot where we'll have an entrepreneur and author, Mike Southern, come on. He's written a best-selling book. He talks about entrepreneurship. He lectures in every top university in the world. He'll be sharing his story with us and his insights. 6:30 tomorrow evening. Again, whatever channel you're listening to this broadcast on, we'll also be broadcasting the podcast tomorrow on that channel. So today's subject is education, something that's really dear to my heart. I personally left school at 15 feeling like school did me no good and was not useful for my future career, and left school and started a business, and I never looked back. I've had many a debate whether or not that was a good idea at the time and since that time, and today we'll be having a discussion with Dave Wallace, who's a well-known entrepreneur, built a company up and sold it, been there, done it, got the t-shirt, and the next generation of entrepreneurs, his daughter Tilly, will also be joining us now. So without further ado, let me bring them in and we can say hello.
Hi, Simon.
Hi, Dave. How you doing?
Yeah, no, good. So I should explain that Tilly was due to be with me, but we've succumbed to COVID lockdown. So she's actually in Bristol, where she's at university at the moment. So her Wi-Fi is playing up, but any second she'll be joining.
Oh, no problem. She's joins in a moment. I can see she just dropped out of the
yeah. Well, she's quite stressed, but you know, I've just told her these things happen. To be honest,
they do happen. That's right. Well, while we're waiting for Tilly to join us again, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about your background and what you've done?
Yeah, no, fantastic. So my background is a pure digital person. So I started my career in Yellow Pages many years ago. And I think my claim to fame is I discovered the internet for Yellow Pages. And then from there, I ended up in a couple of e-commerce startups, and then started my own business in 2001. And that was an agency, which was a UX and design agency, but we decided to focus very strongly on financial services firms. And basically with that business, we started as a sort of tiny team in a sleepy Oxfordshire village called Goring. And, you know, within a few months, we'd managed to get contracts with RBS. Then we got another contract with HSBC. And basically, I then went around the world with HSBC, and sort of we sort of did a lot of their digital design, strategy and implementations. So I sold the business to WPP in 2008. And sorry, I'll just keep looking because Tilly's Wi-Fi is still not working, but she'll get there. Sold the business in 2008 and stayed with WPP until last year, when I left. And then fairly recently, I've started another business, a small consultancy, which again is very focused on financial services. But what I'm trying to do is solve a different problem than the one I was trying to solve last time, which is really how do you kind of connect people better with their money, and how do you hold the institutions which offer finance to account in terms of building better relationships with their customers. But the reason I wanted Tilly on the show was she provided a lot of inspiration actually for some of the things I was thinking about from a business point of view. And she was sort of in the background starting to think about starting her own little business, because I think she's at university final year, and she was like, what am I going to do when I kind of finish university? And I was like, well, have you thought about starting your own business? And she said, no, I haven't. You know, nobody's in the university saying entrepreneurship's a good thing. And actually she sort of started going, well, I think this could be a good idea. And you know, over time, over the last few months, I've been sort of helping her kind of get started, but I've kind of realized there's a lack of help and support and education for young people coming out of school and university in terms of starting their own businesses. So I thought, you know, she'd be a great person to chat to because she's in the eye of the storm if we can get her on. So
yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. It's fascinating to hear it from, I guess, the next generation, and I not only, you know, talk about education in its present form, I guess in this new world we're living in as well. Like, you know, I guess there was an argument in university before that you don't need to worry about entrepreneurship because when you come out of university with this degree we're going to give you, you'll get a job. So no problem.
Yeah, I think, I mean, she took a gap year, so most of her friends are actually leaving this year, and none of them are walking into jobs. It's sort of, it is really, really tough, and I think that there's not an automatic kind of then a thought around actually I could do something for myself, you know. And I think there's so many opportunities for young people, and you know, I think they kind of need some help. They need some help in pointing them in the right direction. But I think, you know, on the converse, they're coming out of university with a lot of skills, you know. So Tilly's helping someone around social media, and it's been fascinating to kind of watch her and what she does, because it's all stuff I don't know and understand. So, you know, it's kind of, it's going to work both ways, I think. So
I totally agree. Maybe while we wait for Tilly to sort out her Wi-Fi issues, you could tell us a little bit about what you think the future of the financial industry is. I know that's a big one, but I mean that's your area of expertise for the last 2 decades. I'd love to hear where you think it's all going, and how you think, like you mentioned earlier, connecting people with their money better. You know, what is the future there, do you think?
Well, so I guess when I first started in the industry, you know, doing banks, it was 20 years ago, and our job was just to basically move customers onto the internet as a new channel. So, you know, I think my whole shtick was around usability, you know, making these services as useful and usable as you possibly can. The useful bit kind of got lost in translation, to be honest with you. And I think, you know, we did a great job in terms of sort of developing online banking and mobile apps. But I suddenly realized that actually we'd been complicit in something with the banks, which is moving their customers online and basically training them to be transactional. So, you know, actually in many ways, digital banking is a kind of cost play. And I did some research last year, and I basically found that there was a kind of gap between what people had and what they were looking for from a kind of financial point of view. And I think one of the barriers that they saw was they just see their banks as utilities these days. And actually, there's real concern in the general population about money and what to do about money. You know, I think what's kind of needed is to kind of actually help people in terms of money and finance, and provide a kind of relationship layer. So, you know, 30 years ago, if you needed money or help or financial advice, you go and see your bank manager, and he'd know you and all the people around you, so could offer good advice. Now we don't have the sort of digital equivalent of that anymore. And so I think the kind of future is very much about how do you kind of actually support people, build relationships with people, and provide them with the sort of necessary tools and advice that they need in order to kind of achieve the goals and manage their lives. And you know, I think that the term financial wellness is often used, but achieve financial wellness.
I have to say, I think, of course, the banks have missed a massive trick there. I mean, I feel like the banks, I trust them to look after my money, but I wouldn't trust them to get advice about my money. I feel they're not, I don't feel like they're experts, and I don't feel like they actually care about me. And that's a real loss for them, isn't it? I mean, so
I think so, because I mean, they should be actually providing advice. When you talk to people, they say, well, look, I don't mind being told or given ideas, but you know, basically, I sort of feel like you're saying the banks have kind of lost credibility around that because they just haven't engaged with their customers. They've gone, we'll push them into these transactional kind of, platforms, and we'll let them get on with it. And it's just, you're right, they've just missed a trick. And I think actually they can kind of recapture some ground because there is a need. Through things like open banking, I think you will see other sort of third parties emerging who are sort of able to take banking information and provide advice. So I think there's a huge amount of opportunity around that. I mean, I'm always fascinated by people like Apple who, you know, are increasingly looking after your privacy. So if you're an Apple customer, you know, they'll say that their number one thing is about privacy. And actually, if you look at what banks talk about, privacy is a big thing. So, you know, you could argue a bank is good at two things. One is keeping your information private, and the other is moving numbers from one spreadsheet cell to another. And it's not long before, you know, Apple may be in the business of moving money from, or moving numbers from one spreadsheet cell to another, you know. So
I guess that's Facebook's play with cryptocurrency, isn't it?
It is. But I would, again, question whether Facebook has the sort of trust of people in order to kind of pull that off, to be honest with you.
Well, people are already trusting them with their most valuable commodity, their data.
True. That's very true. Very true.
Definitely an interesting time. I mean, Tilly's here, so I think we'll bring Tilly on in a second. Just finishing off this conversation, which I think we could probably talk just this subject alone for an hour, but I was having a chat with a well-known bank who has hundreds of millions of customers, SME customers, and I was saying to them, you know, why don't you offer help to these SME customers in this difficult time? You know, why don't you offer them support? And their reaction was very honest, actually. They said, we're actually scared to talk to them. We'll be overwhelmed with, you know, requests. So we better just leave them alone, you know, like, and to me, it's crazy. They have this enormous client bases that they just are scared to talk to. It just doesn't make sense, does it? I mean,
well, it doesn't. I mean, they're kind of commoditizing themselves, you know. I mean, it's just a thing to finish, so we have all the challenger banks kind of emerging. So the UK is a hotbed. We've both spent time in Hong Kong, and I think Hong Kong's now kind of coming up the ranks with the likes of Mox and Zabank and WeLab and things like that. Those are interesting, you know, because they're a bit more kind of digitally enabled, but they kind of are solving thin slices of the sort of problem. And going back to your point of the sort of SME bank with all these customers, you'd think, well, actually, you know, what people want is advice. Like when, you know, we've all been small business owners. When you run a business, you don't know what you don't know, and sort of banks are one of the people that can help you. And I think, you know, my point around the neobanks is they're almost becoming disposable in terms of how easy it is to get them and have an account with them, and they're not answering that sort of advice thing either.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, just a plug. I have the founder of Manice Bank. They have over 2 million online customers in the UK. He'll be coming on the podcast show the week after next to share how he started that business from scratch and built a challenger bank, and how the other banks are trying to keep up, because it's definitely an interesting time. But as we've got Tilly here now, I'm going to bring her on. I'm going to switch the subject to education. Hi, Tilly.
Hi.
Thank you for persevering with the tech.
Pardon?
Thank you for persevering with the technology.
It's fine. Sorry about that. I've not got very good Wi-Fi here at mine.
No, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. I'm a big fan of your dad, and I know you know, he's an entrepreneurial role model for you. But would you mind telling my audience a little bit about what you've studied, what you're doing now? Just give us a bit of background.
Well, I'm currently in 3rd year at university. I'm at the University of the West of England, and I'm studying creative and professional writing. So I think now I'm in 3rd year. I'm sort of in that sort of, you know, when you go into sort of panic mode and you're like, okay, university is coming to an end soon. Like, what next, you know? So recently I had an opportunity where I started doing social media for a lady, and I think something just sort of clicked in my brain, and I thought, wow, actually, do you know what, this is a great opportunity. I could see myself really taking this further. So I'm currently working on sort of starting a business, social media marketing, but I'm very early stages, sort of a bit like unsure what to do with it almost, really. So yeah, that's what I'm doing.
And when you're studying now, do your peers, does the school in any way encourage entrepreneurship? How do you think entrepreneurship is viewed within the school system right now?
Well, I think with my course in particular, you know, they do copywriting, all of that, and they do actually teach us, you know, writing for businesses, which I think is so beneficial. But I think with a lot of other courses, there's nothing of the sort, really.
It was interesting because I got Tilly to help someone I know do some copywriting for a software as a service site, which was kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, what you found was that actually the skills you needed were very different from sort of what you had in university, and, you know, what you kind of,
completely,
for you, that was kind of an eye-opener, wasn't it, in terms of the practical application of copywriting?
100%. Yeah, I completely agree with you. It really, really did open my eyes to the fact that I haven't really been taught anything really, you know, in terms of, I mean, in starting a business, you know. So that is something that I need more work on.
I mean, I'm a vocally negative about university in particular, and I feel like in lots of respects it's a default. When you don't quite know what you want to do, a lot of people go to university, or there's some peer pressure to go to university.
100%.
And I wonder if when you're in university itself, if there's a way to update the system, because if they are, at least, as you just mentioned, showing you a little bit about business, I have some hope, you know, because I feel for most people, when you come out at the other end of university, as you just described, you know, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
If there's no job, then you know, what are people going to do? And I feel like most people are expecting a job, right?
100%. People think, you know, I'm going to university, I'm investing so much money, I'm investing years of my life, you know, I'll come out of university, that's it, have a job handed to them on a plate. That's not the case, is it? It's really not the case. And they don't really teach you another option. You know, I when I was at sixth form, I felt I had no option other than to go to university. So you're right, you do get peer pressured into going. You think, okay, if I don't go to university, I'm going to fail in life. That's how they sort of make it out to be. But really, they should be teaching us all the other options and how to start a business, because it's great. You know, it's a great way to like earn money, be successful. You know,
be free to pursue your own vision and those things. Do you think if your father wasn't an entrepreneur, do you think this realization of you could be an entrepreneur too would have happened, or do you think?
Absolutely not. I think I'd actually be almost too scared to really do it, because I think that's what happens with a lot of people. They don't know where to start. They don't know, you know, all the intricate like things about starting a business. They have no idea about. They don't have a mentor or anything like that. So I think I would actually be maybe a little bit too scared. And I think it's only because I've got my dad there that I feel like I can do it. You know, I really feel like I can, but that's because I've got such great advice. You know, I can pick up the phone, ask my dad. Fantastic advice.
Which dad's that providing the advice? So.
Pardon?
I said, which dad is that providing the advice? So.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like you, Dave. Is it you?
It doesn't sound like me.
Oh, come on.
No, but I think, I mean, it's kind of, for me as a dad, it's kind of thrilling to see. You know, I hope all my children understand that they're under no pressure from me or their mum to go to university, but I think it is a broader kind of systemic thing, which is the pressure. But it's great, you know, for me. It was so interesting seeing, like, I literally saw the penny drop in Tilly's head when this person gave her this opportunity. I saw it sort of go from here down, and it's completely changed your whole kind of perspective and attitude, hasn't it? And it's kind of fascinating to watch, because it's sort of, I think it's freed you. You used the word freedom, Simon. I think it's absolutely freed you to kind of think big thoughts, to be honest with you. So the fear that you had is kind of gone, I think, because you can see that, you know, you can actually do this, you know. So
well, it's such an amazing thing to be able to create a job for yourself, isn't it? As opposed to wait for someone to give you a job. And one of the interesting things I'm interested in asking is kind of a statement and a question, really. But, you know, when I speak to a lot of people coming out of university and I say to them, start a business of your own, they say exactly what you said, which is, oh, that sounds very scary. And then when I explain that, if you go work for someone, okay, at the beginning it's very comfortable, but actually over time, the truth is it gets very uncomfortable quite often, because it's their mission, their vision, they tell you what to do. You might like your boss tomorrow, and then you don't like the new boss that comes in, and so on and so forth. Whereas when you work for yourself, it's really hard at the beginning, but you are the boss, and you can, if you want to get a co-boss, you get a co-founder, and you hire who you want to hire, and you work with who you want to work with. And you actually, over time, life becomes a lot more pleasurable. So it's actually a lot more risky, I think, to go work for someone else. But for somehow society has taught people that being an entrepreneur is very risky. I couldn't disagree more. What do you think about that, too?
I completely agree with you, honestly. Like, I think people basically teach you that starting a business, being successful when starting a business is very rare. They basically teach you, oh, you can start a business, but you're going to fail. They basically say you need a backup job. But I completely agree with you. Like, I think my dad can back me on this, but I've got a very strong personality, and the thought of working for something else has never, ever, for someone else has never, ever appealed to me. But yeah, the school system does not encourage starting your own business. It really, really doesn't. So I completely agree with you there, Simon.
The other thing, and I guess, again, I'm asking you, but I make these statements, so I'm kind of validating them with you, hopefully. But I get a lot of people that tell me that they want to start a business of their own, but for example, they don't have money, or they're not quite sure, like you say, how to do it. Do you think that, what if you go to people and say, I'm starting my own business, what do they say to you? What's the reaction? Is it?
A lot of people are actually quite impressed. Mainly people are just like really interested and sort of being like, how? They're very, very curious about it. And I think that's because at my age, people don't consider that as an option. But I'm 21. Like, why aren't people considering this as an option? Really, it seems to me like the best option you've got out there. You can do anything you want. But a lot of people are often just like really like, but how are you doing that? And it's like, well, it's easy, really.
Yeah, I think it's interesting as well, because young people are in a brilliant position to start, because they have less things to worry about in terms of,
they've got no commitments, they have to pay a mortgage, they've got room to mess up, this is the time in your life where you've got room to like mess up. It doesn't matter.
Plus, I think access to technology, we're for £1,000, which I'm not saying is a small amount of money, but we're live streaming to thousands of people potentially around the world, and so you can be a global business very quickly now, right? There's actually no better time. I would have expected, in a way, for entrepreneurship to be more mainstream within the school system by now, considering, like you say there, it's interesting. I think entrepreneurship, yes, a lot of people fail, but people fail in going into a job. You can get fired within a month. You can get fired 6 months into that job. The company you're working for can fail, So there's plenty of failure that can be had both sides of the equation, working for someone else or being an entrepreneur. Right? But at least being an entrepreneur, you're in control of it yourself, right?
Yeah, and I think that's really great. Why wouldn't you want to be in control of it? It's amazing. It's so much better than working for someone else, in my opinion.
Is there anybody else in your university that's also starting a business, or do you think people, even considering the COVID wake-up call, let's call it that, do you think people are becoming more aware of this way of going, or do you think people are still hoping that we go back to normal and they can just get a job?
I think the latter. I think the latter more so. People see it as more secure. And I think right now everyone's quite scared, and they see that as like a more secure, easy option. So very much the latter, which really, really does surprise me.
As a student, do you think you're A, B, C, D kind of? How do you class yourself as a student?
I would say I'm very average, sort of like a C, B.
That the whole theory. There's a whole theory out there that A students end up working for C students. Yeah. And statistically, it's a fact. They did a study in the US, so you can take it with a pinch of salt depending on who sponsored the research, but 75% of A students ended up working for C students. And the theory was that C students accepted their flaws, as you've just done, and have I failed a few times, but don't mind, you know, like get back on your feet and go again. But A students are not used to failing, so they won't take any risk. So you might end up employing a lot of your colleagues at university.
Well, yeah, I like to think so. Definitely, I like that theory very much.
Yeah,
that works in my favour.
But when you're building out the business, the other thing I felt in school, I mean, I left school at 15, so I'll give university credit. Of course, you have a longer period of time to help people. But I feel like when I was at school, we never talked about things like moral code, you know, like what is good and what is bad in business. Do any of these things come up?
No.
No,
almost never.
Because I feel like, you know, certainly the last 15, 20 years in the finance sector, you know, when the mortgages were sold to people, the people working there, it's all about making money, isn't it? It's all about figuring out how to make money. Do you have any sense that a sense of moral obligation in this kind of COVID era is kicking in, or people still very much like, I want to make money?
Very much like I want to make money. Very like money thirsty. People, I mean, I think more people are more aware of, you know, the morals behind it, but I do think people very much like, I want to be rich, I want to make money.
And why do you think? Why has money? I mean, money was a big thing when I was 20 as well. You know, I didn't have any money because I was building businesses, but you know, I can see why money is still prevalent. But I'm surprised, you know, when you look at all the problems in the world, I do feel like young people care about. That there's not more of an emphasis. I mean, certainly I feel like that schools, again, have failed people. They're not having these conversations. But within your peer group, you must have these conversations, you know, plastic, for example, or, you know, saving our oceans, linked plastics again. These conversations must be happening within the social circles. Definitely.
No, they really are. They are. You know, there's so many new things that people are aware of, you know, like in the environment, all of that. Like, it is, no, it definitely is. Definitely.
Because I get companies, a lot of the time I'm talking to companies, and they, you know, that before COVID, to hire young people, they felt like they needed to have a purpose, you know, a good strap line to explain why, you know, their bank would be the bank to go and work with, you know. Yeah. But in reality, they don't have enough of a purpose. But do you feel like people want to go work with companies with a purpose, or they're not that bothered? It's not that not top on the list, certainly.
I'd like to think so. You know, I mean, come on, they really should be. I think it's sort of divided into like people probably, half the people want to work with just what the best opportunity they can get money-wise, doesn't matter. And I think the other half do sort of, you know, want to work with a business with a purpose. So I think it is very much divided. So perhaps that does show, you know, some change, you know, with points of views in our generation then, maybe.
But I mean, I think there's a bit of a schizophrenia going. I mean, again, I'd be interested in your views, Tilly, but it's sort of like all of these companies are talking about purpose, but actually not demonstrating what that kind of means. I mean, I sort of boil it down to kind of Coca-Cola selling bottled water and using plastic bottles. If they really were so minded, they could stop selling these things tomorrow. And I think young people would go, that's a great message. Whereas, you know, they don't, you know, and they keep selling this stuff. And I think people are like confused at the sort of kind of corporate schizophrenia. So I don't know. It's sort of, there's a danger, I think, of saying, well, young people are going to solve all of this stuff because they're still driven by the same things. I think they're just genuinely confused by what's going on in the kind of corporate world. I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Tilly?
No, I do really agree with you, actually. It's like, they pretend like, you know, that they care, and then there's actually they don't. When you sort of boil it down, they don't. So I do completely agree with you, Dad, there. Definitely.
What I've noticed is, so, you know, I talk to a lot of big corporations about helping people start businesses lately. In the last 6 months since I've been on this project, and what I've discovered is that there are pockets of people within these brands that are trying to do good and fighting the machine that they work for to try and do some good. I guess it's, you know, similar to probably, you know, your peer group. There's people in that peer group that care about nothing but making money, and there's people in that peer group that care about solving big problems. And I think I see the same in corporates. I don't know what you think, Dave, but I see a lot of good people that want the corporates have so much power they can actually make a huge impact, just like Dave's example just then with Coca-Cola. But equally, there's a huge consumer base on the other side that, you know, if you change the formula to Coke in any way, it'd be an uprising saying, I can't get my cheap bottled Coke. Now it's 50p more and in a glass bottle. And so it's I guess there's that struggle, isn't there? And but it's interesting to me just to understand from that student perspective, like, would people go and work with a company because it's got a purpose? Would they start a business and have purpose, like your business, for example, Tilly? And I know you're being very humble about it. You're just at the early stages of it, which I respect. But I mean, do you think about, these are the other words I think I mentioned, the purpose, and do you think about scale, how you might scale a business like you're talking about? Do you think about these things?
I mean, like you said, I am still in the very early stages, but I am starting to sort of wanting to be thinking about those sort of things, because I think, you know, I would love to have a business that had a great purpose, and that, you know, I could really reach and impact so many people. You know, that would, I don't know why more people don't really care as much about that. But no, I am very I am still sort of coming up with all the ideas and stuff. So right now, I can't really give you a proper answer to that question because, like I said, very early stages. But that is one of my main priorities and something that I do really hope to aim towards. Like, I mean,
but is it? I mean, again, it's interesting. I mean, it's a good question because both you and I have built businesses and we've sold them to other people. And you know, now I'm starting another business and I want it to be much more purposeful. But I'm still thinking about, well, actually, at some point, I'd like an exit from that business. But you know, it's how do you balance these two things out? And I think again, that's a massive piece of sort of education. So, you know, if Tilly sees the idea of kind of balancing finance and purpose and all these things together, where are the resources which kind of help people around these things? You know, I mean, you're here, which is great, and generating resources, but there doesn't seem to be a kind of seam of advice and help around that exact same thing. You know, so the danger is you revert to, I don't know, let's just make money or let's just make this purposeful. Whereas I think the two could live very happily together. It's just trying to work out how to do that.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think there is a lack of resource. I mean, I'm working on a project at the moment trying to reinvent the library. You know, we've had 700 libraries closed in the last 2 years. And I think the library is the only place you can still go where no one expects any money from you when you walk through the door. And I feel like my idea for the library in the future would be, you know, it's a competitor to the job centre. And it's the place you go to build a business of your own or build your own job, create your own job. You go there to get the knowledge, because I think a library is really about knowledge, not about books. And so, you know, I love the idea that there's a resource there for people that isn't, you know, the government provide a job centre right now, which is literally like, we've got 5 jobs, which one do you want? Good luck getting it. And instead of the conversation should be, you know, what's your dream? What are you good at? What do you like doing? And helping people, you know, build a business, which just makes total sense in this day and age. And it is, to your point, Dave, crazy that we don't have such a thing anymore. I mean, even business schools, and I've spoken at way too many, they tend to talk about the past and what other people did. They don't talk about the opportunities in the future. And equally, they definitely don't talk about purpose. And interestingly enough, Tilly, I think purpose is something to think about as soon as you can, because it actually doesn't cost anything to install a purpose, a mission in the business. But what it does, I think, if you get it right from day one, is it becomes part of the company's DNA early on, as opposed to like becoming a big company and then saying, hold on a minute, what's our purpose? Trying to re-engineer it in to the business. So, I mean, for example, you know, you could definitely help people start their own business, and your social media business could be all about that. Now, I'm using my own purpose a little bit, rubbing it off on yours, but that could be a really strong, relevant today purpose that could motivate you when it gets hard later, right? That you're helping these people. And because what I found with purpose is it actually also helps you attract people to work for you too, because they're attracted to the purpose, not necessarily the paycheck or even the job, you know, because even I'm sure you're finding yourself, not every element of working for yourself is glamorous, right? I mean, there's all sorts of nitty gritty stuff you have to do. It's not that much fun. Yeah,
no, definitely. I think you're so right. And that's really, really useful. Thank you. Because that's something that I'm probably now, that's something that I need to think about now. So that's great. So thank you for making me.
Well, I tell you, there's a starter for you, Tilly. So Tilly's helping people who are actually excluded from social media to connect with an audience through social media. So she's talked about a target, which is people who are frightened of social media, who are running their own businesses.
Yeah.
And actually, I think that's a fantastic kind of purpose, because, you know, when you think about the conversations you've had with people, there's fear there. You know, there's people saying, I really want to do this, but I feel excluded because I just don't have the knowledge. And you're acting as a bridge. And I think that's, you know, there's nothing wrong in kind of saying, well, actually, I'm out to help people in terms of navigate this sort of strange new world of social media.
Yeah.
It's completely beyond me, to be honest with you. I was saying whilst you weren't on, whilst you hadn't got on, what an inspiration it's been in terms of some of the things that I've observed you do. You know, I think it's,
thank you.
Anyway, there's a starter.
You give me hope as well, Tilly. You give me hope that people can go into the university system but still come out with an entrepreneurial mindset. I worry it gets trained out of people. So you know, it's wonderful to see what you're doing, and me and my network, we're here to help you in any way we can, of course.
Thank you so much.
Do me a favor and just encourage more of your peer group to follow purpose and go start something for themselves, or join yours.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's a good idea. Definitely.
Well, I'm going to bring on an entrepreneur that has started a business now. He's created a company called Horizon X. So machine learning at your service is how he pitches his company. So why don't you guys stay on? We'll listen to his story and see if we can help him.
Great.
Hey, Diego, how you doing?
Cool.
Oh, your sound's off. See if you can unmute yourself.
Sure. Now, good evening.
Oh, there you go. Hi, how you doing?
Hi. I'm fine, thank you.
Good, good. Well, welcome to the show. And why don't you start off by telling my guests and the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Diego. I'm founder of Horizon X. Together with other 3 people here in Italy, we founded the startup in February this year. So it's a quite new startup in a period very not so easy for the world, but yeah, of course we will pass this bad period. Horizon X, as I said, is a startup that is working on machine learning algorithms, and we are creating verticals such as one that will be launched in January next year, which is called Crowdy. That is a platform for crowdfunding portals. So it's mainly a B2B service that we are launching to the market. And this is just the first step on our roadmap, because as I wrote also in the very brief description of our startup, we have a long-term, it's not so long, I hope it will be shorter than expected. And it is to create a fund for startups, and this fund is more focused on micro investments. So the fund is the core, the soul of the fund is our machine learning engine that we are building and that we are applying for Crowdy platform. But the main idea is to have this machine learning engine working on this fund, and this fund has a peculiarity, which is actually the micro investment from the users, that when they are spending, they are purchasing something, there is a mechanism for having a cashback, and this small amount of cashback will be directly pushed into the funds for to be invested in startups.
So the idea is that the machine system will allow people to get a rebate of sorts every time they spend money. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Okay. And so where does the rebate come from typically? Is that the bank giving a rebate, or is that the product giving a rebate, or either?
Sorry for?
Where does the rebate come from?
Yeah,
Where does coming back come from?
the platform or the idea?
Yeah, for the platform, how do people get the money? It comes onto their card as a rebate.
Yeah, sure.
Who
Yes,
pays for that?
So the micro investment comes from people that are that has an account in our platform, and this will allows them to have this sort of cashback. But this cashback is belonging to a network of merchants. So we have this network of merchants that agree to have the mechanism for cashing back the amount spent, a little portion of the amount spent by the user, and this little amount is then pushed into the fund. And how we are going to manage this micro investment is to use this machine learning engine to have a sort of matching between the preference of the user with the startup backed into the fund.
Okay.
So there is this matching. Yeah.
So you reached out mentioning that you need some help. Where are you at right now? Where are you stuck? What do you need?
Yeah, the help basically is the creation of the fund, and also the license for to have, I mean, all the bureaucracy that is behind of the fund creation, and the license for managing the electronic payments, actually. So the main reason of this discussion is to gather someone that will help us to create this background of our idea. Meanwhile, we are working on our roadmap to create gradually the machine learning engine.
Okay. Well, I'll introduce Dave. Dave, if you can jump in and say hello. Dave is a creative and has worked with the banks and knows it all when it comes to this subject. So I thought that's why you'd be a good guest today, Diego, because Dave would be able to perhaps potentially give you some good advice. But Dave, any thoughts on this idea?
Well, no, I think it's a. I mean, if I've understood it, you as a individual, you're put it through cashback. You're putting money into a fund, which is then invested into startups using kind of machine learning. So, I mean, it's a very, very interesting idea. And I guess there's a number of routes you could go in terms of looking at sort of funding platforms, or talking to a bank themselves about the idea, or I guess I mean, or go to one of the platforms out there who may be able to kind of offer sort of advice or thought. I'm thinking of Plaid or someone like that who offers sort of those payment kind of platforms. They might be in a position to be able to say, well, look, here's what you can do in terms of doing that, because it sort of seems like an interesting kind of what's the word, sort of life cycle, but it's quite different, but it seems quite different as well, so it's sort of so I think you probably have to go and talk to a few people around sort of options around that.
Diego, who is the client for you right now? You said B2B earlier. Is the bank a client? Who's the client?
No, right now the clients are the crowdfunding portals.
Crowdfunding portals?
Yeah, with the idea that with the platform that we are launching in January, yes.
Okay, so that's a collaboration between all the crowdfunding platforms, or there's one crowdfunding platform that is?
No, it's a collaboration. We started with some vertical crowdfunding portals here in Italy, but we want to expand to other crowdfunding portals around Europe. and we provide them the platform to publish their projects, and we have the connection between their projects to our machine learning platform to provide insights to the users, to the possible investors, to have a match between their interest and the crowdfunding campaigns that are active in the market.
So can I so the value in your business is the machine learning rather than the infrastructure, yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
So you're looking for partners to provide the other bits and pieces that you need. Okay, no, that's interesting.
Yeah, but let me say that what we are doing now is just the first step, but our objective is to have this fund at the end with inside the startups and use our machine learning for having this matching between people that spend money to purchase a good or a service in a store or online, and having this micro investment through the cashback.
Would it not make sense to have like a partner like Visa or MasterCard or one of these guys? Is that not a typical? How else do you get access to the transaction?
Yeah, but let me say that the objective and the focus that we want to push in the market is to change completely the crowdfunding idea. So I mean, today we have so many portals, but the average investment is some €100 for just for entering the investment. We want to have a sort of continuous feed to the startups for having the funds. So that's why the micro investment.
Got it.
And that's why, because every time startups get some money for yes, it's like a company that is having an investor on board. That's the unique investor will be the fund, and the fund will be fed by micro investment.
I mean, you could actually, another idea would be to talk to American Express, because they have a real focus on small businesses. And, you know, it doesn't need to be money. It could be points, which people then invest in crowdfunding as well. So it goes back to, if your business is about the machine learning, it's then, you know, you don't want to spend all of your time trying to work out the other bits and pieces. So what's the line of least resistance? So, you know, I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying American Express because they have a focus. But you know, so points are assets as well, which you could use to invest. You know, I've got a nice points balance. The thought of actually investing in businesses with that point balance is not a bad one at all. So, I mean, that's another kind of thought.
What do you think? Have you thought about these things? Is this something? Is this a direction you've been going in? What's your idea for moving it forward?
So that I mean, I understood the suggestion to have a sort of B2B service instead of yes, something that maybe is difficult and complex to build up. And I think that is something that we have in our mind to don't go to a B2B2C, I mean, model, but having the core business, so the machine learning engine, and sell it as a service to other businesses.
Yeah, because crowdfunding businesses are typically they're actually quite competitive with each other. So we just had a merger here in the UK.
Yeah, I was just about to.
Seedrs just merged with Crowdcube. We actually have the founders of Seedrs coming on the week after next to talk about it. But yeah, I feel like they're very competitive up until the point they merged. You know, it would be interesting to see, you know, if you could work with sectors that are less competitive or have large client bases already. I can't help but think, you know, the banks themselves. But are they the competitors in your mind on this? Is that you twitched earlier when I said Visa, so I'm just wondering, are they the competition? It's hard to get body language on Zoom, but are they the competitors, or you're still figuring that out?
No. As you said, I mean, also here there is a lot of competition between crowdfunding portals, but yeah, it's a matter of. I mean, there are a lot of users that today are active in the crowdfunding, but I mean, let me give you this this insight about the Italian market. There are a lot of people actually that is registered in crowdfunding portals, but a lot of them are not active, so they are not investing directly. So there is a big portion, and I think that also in the European market and also in other countries, that people will invest only one time, and then yes, it's not active for 1, 2, or 3 years in those platforms, just because they has already invested.
Make sure I understand what you're saying. You're saying there's a lot of people on crowdfunding sites that are registered on crowdfunding sites, but they're not making any investments.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're saying that your system can activate those people because you're saying every time they buy something, they get credit towards their crowdfunding activity.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Definitely interesting. So again, remind me, what do you need? What's stopping you growing now? What do you need? How can we help you exactly, other than give you advice? What do you actually need?
No, the main idea was to have someone that can help us for setting up this fund. But yes, of course, it's something that can change a little bit after this very interesting talk with you.
I think I missed it. I feel like I didn't catch it. What do you need? Setting up a fund, did you say? What do you need to do?
Sorry,
Diego. I didn't catch what you said you actually need help with. I'm sorry. Is it a fund? F-U-N-D, a fund?
a fund, yes.
You need legal help with setting up a fund?
Legal help, yes, exactly. With all the bureaucracy to set up this fund.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think I know someone that might be able to help you with that. I can give that to you offline. There's plenty of good people that can help you set up funds. I don't think it's a big deal. As always with funds, money solves all problems. Yeah. So depends what your funding situation is like. But funds are not difficult to set up. They're pretty straightforward structures. Just to maintain them, manage them, and so on. There's a cost base once you have it in place. I mean, a big thing I think for what you're talking about is going to be like an escrow element to it, right? That money coming from people's transactions needs to go somewhere safe, right? That people feel like that money's going to be deployed, and the transparency through the deployment of the capital is going to be quite important, I think, from the user confidence perspective, right?
Yes, please.
So is the reason for the cashback in the fund to activate customers, is that the kind of central premise?
Yes.
That's because I mean, again, I'm struck by there seems to be a lot of hard work to do there, and I can see the logic. But if you're doing your machine learning, which is potentially able to bring people opportunities to invest, that becomes more of a kind of potential marketing platform, which you then take ideas to customers. So like Tilly's got a little business, she might be looking for investment, and based on what your system sort of could tell me, I'm suddenly notified that there's an interesting business which you could invest in. So you sit above all the kind of the crowdsourcing, funding portals themselves, and you're providing recommendations. I mean, that's to me that's sort of another way of kind of skinning the cat, as we say in the UK. So
I don't know why we say that in the UK and in my US.
I don't either. It's a horrible
Do
thing.
not skin cats. We love cats. I mean,
Yeah.
we really love cats here in England, so I don't think we were doing any skinning at all. But what do you think of that, Diego? Because I agree with Dave, by the way. I think when you first explained this, I am very excited about it. What I thought you were talking about was, every time a Visa card holder buys something, they can create a separate account where, part of that transaction money, back pay, can go into a fund that would invest in people like Tilly. Exactly. I think that's incredibly powerful. I think you suddenly activate millions of people, potentially hundreds of millions of people that have never thought about investing in a business, but and also power up, SMEs with that kind of cashback machine learning thing. I just think that could be huge. But it sounds like you're just focusing in on existing customers that have signed up to a crowdfunding. Is this the short-term plan and the long-term plan here, or?
No, it's let me try to clarify a little bit. So what we are gonna launch next year is just a local initiative. Is something that we will apply here, and it's for building up the machine learning engine. We have already the proof of concept of it. The platform is developing. Yes, on a development phase, and we will put all together by the end of this year. Mm-hmm. So what we want to have and what we want to work next year is to create this new, let me say, platform or application where people will, as I said, will invest the micro cashback that they will receive from on a network of merchants. We have now all the ingredients because we have a partner with a network of merchants. We have the machine learning actually is on development, but it's something that we will test with the platform, and we will use also as a service to companies. What we missed on this schema is the fund and all the bureaucracy and legal stuff for putting all together. And
I have to say, I think the bit you're missing is the easiest bit.
Yeah,
the funding structure piece is so easy. I think the machine learning technology, and then frankly the partnerships side to make that machine learning useful is the tricky bit. But look, Diego, thanks very much for coming on and sharing your startup story with us. We'll be keeping an eye on you. Offline, I'll give you a contact to someone to help you with the fund, set up stuff. Dave, Tilly, any final comment before we go?
No, it sounds like a really fascinating product.
Yes,
project.
really good.
Thank you very much.
Tilly, this is your chance to pitch, and if you need any social media, contact me.
Okay,
we'll put
sure.
Contact down below, folks. Anyone listening, need any social media help, contact Tilly. Diego, Tilly's just started a social media business, and it's going to be the biggest social media company in the world with a purpose.
Just you watch. Just
you watch. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Nice to see you all, guys. Thanks so much for taking the time to share your stories and insights. And we'll be in touch. Thanks for joining today.
Cheers, then. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
There we go, folks. That's today's podcast. I hope you found it useful. I hope you found it insightful. If you found Tilly's story inspiring, that makes me happy. And if Tilly will allow me, I will add her contact information down below, and you can flood her business with new work or words of encouragement or just a like. I'm sure she'd appreciate it. All new entrepreneurs do appreciate any support in any form. So if you found what Diego's saying interesting and want to support him anyway, I'll put his LinkedIn in the podcast notes so you can reach out to him. I love his tagline, machine learning at your service. And I think he's clearly a genius with a brilliant business. And let's see if we can help him grow it and make it useful. I love a business like Diego's because I can see how a business like that can mobilize a lot of money to help businesses get the funding they need to grow, to start, to scale. So, thanks to him. Dave Wallace, a fantastic tech creative entrepreneur, and he's a friend of mine, so pleasure to have him on the show today and for him to share his insights and stories. And I hope you found what he had to say about the future of the financial services interesting. I know I did. If you found anything we had to talk about today interesting, I'd appreciate a like. It helps with the algorithm to make sure this sort of content gets to more people. If you know anybody out there that should be coming on the show and getting our help as far as their startup is concerned, or they want to do a startup and need some guidance, then feel free to contact us through thepurposefulproject.com, or of course, just make a comment in any of the social media feeds that you might be listening to this broadcast on today. We're here to help 1 million people start a business of their own and make sure that no one feels alone doing it. I want to thank you for joining us for the broadcast today, and we'll see you at the same time tomorrow.